This is the Water Quality Association podcast, promoting the betterment of water quality around the world. And hello, I'm your host, Wes Bleed. What do you think is going to be hitting our attention this time around? Same things or something different?
So most consumers are still going to continue to be motivated primarily by taste, odor, and color issues. But once they start looking into treatment options and researching drinking water quality issues, they're going to quickly learn about health-related contaminants, which might also be in their drinking water.
That's WQA Technical Affairs Director Eric Yeggy with predictions for water contaminants and related issues for 2025. And welcome to the weekly podcast from the Water Quality Association, leading voice of the residential, commercial, and industrial water treatment community. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're glad you're here. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a show. It's the magic of podcasting. We also feature our podcasts on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/@WaterQualityAssociationVideos. In this podcast, we feature our annual contaminant predictions. We go to the expert, WQA Technical Affairs Director Eric Yeggy, for his yearly outlook on the contaminants, trends, and issues facing the water treatment industry in the coming year. We look at last year's predictions, what's surprised Eric so far as we've reached the midpoint of the 2020s, and what consumers will be paying close attention to in 2025. Plus, we'll have our WQA Tip. It's all coming up on the Water Quality Association podcast. Great to have Eric Yeggy, the Technical Affairs Director from WQA, on the program for this time. And Eric, great to see you, great to check in with you, and Happy New Year.
Wes, it's good to be back with you, yeah. And happy to do this podcast again. This is always one of the funnest ones of the year.
It really is, because we take a look at predictions. We check you out from your predictions from a year ago, and we see how things have changed over the year, and also what new things might be on the horizon that we want to talk about and let our members know so that they can be aware and prepare, right? I like that, be aware and prepare. So first of all, I want to know about how the past year has gone for you and your technical affairs team, just in general.
It's been a very busy year. We've been providing support to public officials who are interested in using final barrier treatment solutions to solve water quality issues. A lot of that interest is being driven by the revisions to the lead and copper rule, but there's also been interest in solutions for other types of contaminants, especially in states like California, which have launched funding programs to help private well owners and small systems with very specific contaminants. And these requests, of course, are on top of the normal requests that we receive from members for technical support. And one of the changes we made to WQA's membership benefits is that all industry members are now eligible for support through the Technical Affairs Department. Those types of requests range, from help with treatment-oriented questions, what is this new contaminant, how do I remove it, to more general questions like who are the certified drinking water testing laboratories in my state.
Yeah, that's very important, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's a fantastic benefit for members, and if you're watching or listening to this and you're not a member, there you go, as far as a great reason to become one. Besides, you get to talk to Eric and just in general, and he's a great guy. Okay, so what's kept you the busiest this year, Eric?
Well, one of the things that we do as part of the technical affairs role is to support standard development efforts within the industry. And one of the things that has taken up the most time this year has been there's been some poorly written standards published lately that have caused confusion and have created a lot of problems for the industry. And I'm not going to call them out, but I think everyone knows which ones I'm referring to. A lot of different companies have experienced these problems. And, standard developers are entrusted with a great deal of responsibility, and they need to really take that responsibility to heart. They need to ensure that any new standards they develop don't overlap with existing standards, because that's just going to cause confusion and duplication that's unnecessary. They need to make sure that the methods included in their standards actually work and that they're validated to provide consistent results across multiple laboratories, and that there's a demonstrated need for a new standard.
And we're talking, Eric, we're talking about standards for products, right? Point of use and point of entry products.
Yep. Like a lot of these standards are used, for example, for product certification. And for the most part, the product certification standards are all intended to be voluntary standards. But in some cases, standard developers will lobby to have their new standards incorporated into plumbing code or into other programs that will compel the use of these standards. So it becomes even more important that they really pay attention to these decisions. And we've spent a lot of time this year in the Technical Affairs Department trying to fix some issues like this that are harming the industry and the customers of the industry. And I really want to encourage all standard developers to examine their internal policies on when they will decide to launch a new standard, when they will decide it's mature enough to lobby for inclusion of that standard in plumbing codes or other programs. And these are, important decisions which can impact the future of an entire industry. It shouldn't be viewed as just a business decision by the standard developer. They need to consider how their decisions are going to impact the industry and the customers of the industry.
So you're monitoring these standards, you're monitoring codes, and you're monitoring contaminants and regulatory situations and legislation. You're monitoring, you're doing all of, how do you keep track of all of this? How do you stay on top of it all?
Yep. Well, when it comes to issues related to standards and regulations, we do rely, of course, on the government affairs team to flag a lot of those issues and our members. So if you are running into issues like that, definitely reach out to us in WQA and let us know that you're running into issues. But in terms of the technical issues impacting the drinking water industry, Brianna and I attend and often present at annual technical conferences, which are related to drinking water. A couple of my favorites are WQA's annual convention and exposition, AWWA's Water Quality Technology Conference, and the annual educational conference hosted by NEHA, or the National Environmental Health Association.
All right, so let me go back to the member for a second. And what would you say would be the tools and the resources that you wish members knew about or wish they would take advantage of that could help their business, but for some reason they just don't seem to be aware of?
The most comprehensive technical resource that industry members have access to is WQA's knowledge base. This resource contains literally decades of accumulated industry knowledge on point of use and point of entry treatment techniques, technologies, limitations, situations to avoid, and all kinds of useful information. Industry members can access the knowledge base by going to WQA.org and just use the search bar to look for, quote, knowledge base. You will need your membership login credentials to access the database, but if you have any difficulties, there's a link on our Contact Us page where you can get help from the WQA's membership department, or you can just email WQA at WQA.org and someone will get back to you to help you out.
Mm-hmm. And as we approach the midpoint of the 2020s, we're coming up obviously now at 2025, I'm curious if you have been surprised by anything so far in this decade and what that might be.
Great question. We learned a lot about wildfires in 2024 and the impact that wildfires can have on drinking water quality. I think everybody was already aware that wildfires can impact source waters because there's all this soot and ash, and the runoff of those particles into streams and surface waters can, change the water quality of your source water. But we also learned about toxic organic chemicals being sucked into the distribution system pipes of a water supply because of wildfires. Essentially, this is a bit of an oversimplification, but essentially what happens is when a building, say a house, is destroyed by fire, and the connecting drinking water distribution pipes are depressurized, or maybe they're compromised in a way that results in loss of pressure, then those depressurized pipes can act like vacuum cleaners, sucking up toxic fumes and chemicals from the fire. And picture these broken pipes in the middle of the burning house. They're sucking up a lot of fumes and chemicals. And these chemicals then spread out into the distribution system. And when the distribution system is then reconnected, repressurized, chances are those chemicals are going to come out of somebody's faucet. And the worst part about this is, meanwhile, the public water supply might be completely unaware of this issue because they're testing the water as it comes out of the drinking water treatment plant, and it doesn't contain those contaminants. In fact, the public water supply may be doing everything that is required of them under the Safe Drinking Water Act and still may be unaware of this contamination until it comes out of somebody's faucet and somebody's complaining. In some cases, researchers have found really high levels of these toxic chemicals coming out of the distribution system after wildfires, levels that are well beyond what would be considered safe under the Safe Drinking Water Act, and even levels that exceed hazardous waste limits. So you're talking really surprisingly high levels of toxic organics.
Amazing. Yeah, and we'll continue to monitor and see how that develops over time as well. But again, it's the kind of thing that the Technical Affairs Department can help you if you happen to be living in an area where there are these forest fires, wildfires, or potentially different kinds of fires that might be within your own community. All right, let's talk about last year's predictions and how things went for you in terms of what you thought might be gaining our members' attention and how things actually played out over the course of the year.
So last year we talked about pending regulations that would keep PFAS and lead in the news media for the duration of the year. And we all saw that play out, of course. Unfortunately, I think PFAS and lead are going to be issues we're still going to be dealing with for many years to come. Longer term, we also suggested that members should be on the lookout for potential disruptors in the industry over the next 5 years, say. There's a lot of research going into material science, AI, sensors, connectivity. Developments in these other industries could not only result in new types of treatment technologies, but they could also change the fundamental customer relationship or change the way that dealers are servicing and maintaining systems in the field. So a lot to keep an eye on there still as well.
All right, moving on, Eric, to 2025. And I know that sounds a little funny right now to say, but anyway, what do you think is going to be hitting our attention this time around? Same things or something different?
So most consumers are still going to continue to be motivated primarily by taste, odor, and color issues. But once they start looking into treatment options and researching drinking water quality issues, they're going to quickly learn about health-related contaminants, which might also be in their drinking water. Lead and PFAS, as we talked about, are going to remain prominent in the media, but other contaminants are not going away. There are still many public water supplies and private wells that have issues with arsenic, for example, and the push to consolidate small systems using long pipelines continues to result in more issues with disinfection byproducts. The researchers that are studying disinfection byproducts are starting to look at some of the unregulated ones, and some of the unregulated disinfection byproducts that they're finding may turn out to be more toxic than the ones that are currently regulated. So a lot to keep an eye on there, I think, in 2025.
Well, the EPA has issued some new rules related to lead and PFAS, and I'm wondering how you think those rules are going to affect the industry.
First, because of the expected challenges with the new rules for lead and PFAS, a lot of funding is available to help public water supplies with the necessary improvements. And that funding is not necessarily limited to projects that are aimed at lead and PFAS. So look for lots of smaller systems to be installing other types of treatments as well, such as hardness reduction or consolidation of systems through pipelines, as we talked about, and other types of changes. And any change in the water chemistry could also impact the type of treatment which would be most beneficial for your customer, or maybe the optimal configuration of those systems. So a lot to keep an eye on there. And then second, that the new rules for lead and copper include provisions that will require the handout of point-of-use filters in certain situations. One of the most prominent situations would be when a service line that contains lead is disrupted, such as when it's cut or when it's being replaced. And obviously there's a big push to replace the lead service line, so that's going to be happening a lot. And members should also stay tuned for the annual annual regulatory update from our government affairs team, because that report's going to cover regulatory issues in much more detail than I can do justice to here.
Sure. All right. Any other issues that members should be aware of for 2025, Eric?
Well, we should probably talk a little bit about fluoride. Fluoride and the addition of fluoride to drinking water has become a political battleground, as I'm sure most people are aware. The WQA Water Sciences Committee was asked to review this issue several years ago, and they didn't come out with any clear consensus. They didn't reach any clear consensus on the issue one way or the other. And although WQA hasn't taken a position on the fluoride issue, we do encourage members to be aware of the ongoing debate and to have solutions available for customers who want to remove fluoride. And members should also keep up to date on regional issues that we talked about, such as wildfires, but also regional issues like flooding and droughts, and even in states where they have funding programs available to address certain specific contaminants, such as in California, they have funding to address 1,2,3 TCP, so another very regional contaminant. So there's going to be regional contaminants for members to pay attention to as well.
And this kind of brings back up the whole area of what WQA members need to know, need to be aware of, and how they can track all of these things. How can our members best be positioned for these challenges?
Participate in the training that is offered through WQA's professional certification and training program, or even better, send staff to the WQA instructor-led courses with the goal of having those staff become certified professionals. And also watch out for WQA webinars throughout the year. We host webinars on various technical topics. The EPA also offers many webinars on drinking water-related topics, which can be pretty insightful for members of the industry to hear about. And of course, don't forget to attend WQA's convention and exposition.
Of course, coming up in April. That will be fantastic, and we look forward to that. All right, how will these issues be addressed at convention? Let's talk about that.
Well, the schedule is not finalized yet at the time that we're taping this, but as always, we will have both basic and advanced training sessions on current drinking water treatment topics. We will also cover topics that might impact future customer needs, such as the latest research on lithium in drinking water. And we will have fresh sessions about old issues, such as why resin trap filters, or maybe in some cases the lack thereof, are getting new attention in public health circles.
And if you're new to the industry and perhaps have not attended a WQA convention, it is the place to be for the various topics that Eric's been talking about, in addition to many, many others. So we look forward to that. Eric, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's, again, always a great time of year to be looking ahead and thinking about what is on the horizon. So I appreciate your expertise and your insights.
Thanks, Wes. It's always a pleasure.
Our WQA tip. The WQA Convention and Expo for 2025 is right around the corner. The convention takes place April 22nd through the 24th in Long Beach, California. The theme is Innovate, Break Boundaries. The WQA Convention and Expo is the most comprehensive annual gathering of water treatment professionals in North America, with 200 exhibitors, 2,500 plus attendees, and 50 plus hours of education. Go to convention.wqa.org to learn more. Thanks for joining us for the Water Quality Association podcast, bringing you the latest news and insights from the association, our members, and outside experts to help you better serve your customers and grow your business. Learn more about water and water treatment at our consumer website, betterwatertoday.org, and learn more about professional certification, product certification, and how you can become a WQA member at WQA.org. Until next time, this is Wes Bleed. So long from the Water Quality Association.